what's up everybody? Welcome to UC Davis. My name is Victor. I graduated in 2019. I majored in managerial economics, but I still want to create this video to make sure that you know everything you need to know about UC Davis. If you're an incoming student, congratulations. And with that said, let's get started. This section is going to be general information about UC Davis, and everything will be linked below in the description. UC Davis is a public university adjacent to Davis, California. The main campus is about 15 miles west of Sacramento and 72 miles east of San Francisco. The official school colors are Aggie blue and gold, and our official school mascot is Gunrog the Mustang. Now here's a fun fact. The Mustang is actually named Gunrog, but students are referred to as Aggies in honor of our school's agricultural origins. Now in terms of student demographics, in the fall of 2019, there were 39,629 total students, in which 30,982 were undergraduates and 8,647 were graduates. And when just focusing on undergraduates, 61% were female and 39% were male. And here's a graph showing all the race and ethnicities. 4% were African American or Black, 0.5% were American Indian or Alaskan Native, 32% Asian or Pacific Islander, 23% Hispanic, 23% white, 2% unknown, and 17% international. Now in terms of cost, here's a picture that shows the 2020 to 2021 undergraduate cost of attendance, and the cost will vary depending on your housing situation. But here's a few things to note. Tuition and fees and books and supplies will remain the same. Room and board, personal expenses, and transportation will vary, obviously depending on your housing situation. And lastly, health insurance is mandatory for all students, but you are able to submit a waiver if your current health insurance fits the requirements. For academics, UC Davis offers over 100 undergraduate majors, and they are divided into 4 colleges. College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences, College of Biological Sciences, College of Engineering, and College of Letters and Science. And in 2016 and 2017, here are the top 10 most popular majors at UC Davis, led by Psychology, Managerial Economics, and Economics. The next subject is rankings. In 2020, QS World University Rankings placed UC Davis at 28th overall amongst US universities and 7th among public universities. The 2020 US News & World Report placed UC Davis 39th overall among US universities and 11th among public universities. The 2019 Times Higher Education placed UC Davis 25th overall among US universities and 11th among public universities. Now for admissions, the following information is going to be based off of the class of 2020 class profile. All ranges will reflect the middle 50% of students admitted for 2020. For freshmen entering UC Davis, their GPA was 3.96 to 4.25 weighted and 3.73 to 3.97 unweighted. The admit rate was 46.6%. And for exam scores, the SAT was 1260 to 1470, with math being 640 to 780, and evidence-based reading and writing 600 to 710, and ACT was 28 to 34. Now note, the University of California Board of Regents unanimously approved suspension of the standardized tests requirements, so no ACT and SAT, for all applicants until fall of 2024. Now the next topic is sustainability. UC Davis is known for its commitment to the environment locally and globally. In the 2019 UI Green Metric World University Rankings, UC Davis ranked 3rd in the world and 1st among US universities. And you can see from this picture here, UC Davis plans to admit net zero carbon emissions by 2025. Now let's move over to student housing. So UC Davis student housing is organized into 3 areas. The first is Cuarto, which is currently being renovated, so I wasn't able to get any footage, but I'll show some pictures here. And then this is Segundo, and this is where I stayed. And lastly, this is Tercero. Okay, so I thought I'd make a quick pros and cons list for each of the student housing. Please note that this is just my opinion. Again, I stayed in Segundo, so my assessments of Cuarto and Tercero may be off. So let's start off with Cuarto. For pros, Cuarto has outdoor courtyards and it has the only gated and secured biking parking lot at Tahoe Hall. And that would be good if you have a really nice bike and you're afraid it might be stolen. Lastly, Cuarto is literally right next to the University Mall or the U Mall. So if you need to stop by Trader Joe's or Starbucks, it's only a few minutes away. The biggest con for Cuarto for me is that it's just too far from campus. There are bus stations nearby, but if you're like me and you oversleep a lot, you're probably going to be late to class or even worse, to midterms or finals. The next is Segundo. For For pros, Segundo is in between Cuarto and Tercero, so you reap the benefits of both. The biggest thing for me was that it was the closest to the activities and recreation center, which is the gym. Segundo is across the street from the U Mall, which is nice, and it's also close to a lot of buildings such as plant sciences, math, and psychology. Now for cons, and this is just me being picky but fair and transparent, Segundo has the older buildings. I personally didn't care because I didn't notice. And also on the weekends, you may hear music and loudspeakers from the softball fields. It's not super loud, but you can hear it. Now lastly is Tercero. Pros would be that you're closest to the STEM buildings and the library. The library is still pretty far, but Tercero is the closest one to it. Tercero opened up a second dining common or DC, but as a student, you're able to eat in any DC anyways. Tercero has newer buildings and dorms, so if you care about that kind of stuff, that's probably something you want to look into. And lastly, Tercero is closest to the silo, where there's bus stations, food trucks, and places to study. For Tercero's only con, it has a reputation to smell on some days because you're next to the dairy facilities. I personally never noticed it when I was near Tercero, but to some, it was a problem. And that's my basic pros and cons list for Cuarto, Segundo, and Tercero. I hope that helped. So the last section of this video is going to be my general tips and advice. So my first tip will be get used to the quarter system because UC Davis is on a quarter system. So it's typically 10 weeks for the fall, 10 weeks for winter, and then 10 weeks for spring. Summer is optional. And I mention this because midterms and finals come around so fast, and if you're lagging behind, it's not going to be fun. My second tip will be get used to the transportation around here. It won't be a Davis video without mentioning bikes. UC Davis has a ton of bikes. It is a bike town. And then if you're a student, you can ride our bus system called the Unitrans for free. And if you choose to bike, make sure you know the right of way around a bike roundabout or a bike circle. There are far too many crashes during the first week of school. Get a bike light because it is illegal not to. Invest in a good lock because there's so much petty crime going on. And they can steal your frame, front wheel, back wheel, your seat. And then lastly, be aware that you can actually get a speeding ticket while riding a bike. Hasn't happened to me personally, but I've definitely read stories where it's happened, so just be careful. My third tip will be using Rate My Professor. This is a website that gives you the ability to read reviews that students leave the professors. Just as a disclaimer, it's not entirely accurate, but it does give you a little bit of insight about these courses and what it offers. Speaking of classes, before the first day of class, I would actually recommend you taking a few hours of your day to bike around or walk around the campus and make sure you know where your classes are. I would say the last thing you want to do is be late or be lost on your first day of class. So I would definitely recommend that. So speaking of classes, some of them are going to require textbooks, which leads me to tip number 5, joining Facebook groups and pages. You can find groups for ride shares, furniture, you use textbooks, use bikes, there's literally everything. So you just got to go and find them. The two groups that I used to use a lot when I was still a student was Free and for Sale and Textbook Marketplace. I know that I saved a bunch of money on used stuff and used textbooks. So if you want to save a little bit of money while you're in college, I would highly recommend you checking those pages out. So my next tip will be taking advantage of all the free stuff that comes with your tuition. So as I mentioned before, you can obviously take the bus system or the Unitrans that take you around all around Davis for free. So the gym, which is the activities and recreational center, that's free for students. You can also get Xfinity on campus. You can get Microsoft Office, and I believe you can get Amazon Prime for 1 year. And obviously there's going to be much more. So my next tip number 7 would be being involved. I would recommend joining student organizations, fraternities, sororities, or whatever interests you. There are honestly so many on campus, so you have many options. You will never know who you actually might meet. So my next tip will be hunting for jobs and internships earlier. So UC Davis students will use Handshake, which will expose them to opportunities within campus and internships and maybe even full-time gigs. But I would also recommend creating a LinkedIn as soon as possible. That way, when you're a senior, you have a bunch of connections, and then it'll make your full-time job search a whole lot easier. So my next tip is participating in picnic day. It usually happens around the mid to late April, and there's a bunch of activities all around campus, and it's extremely fun. Just get there early because traffic can be a pain. So my next tip number 10 will be explore the campus and downtown. There are stores and food trucks all around campus. So if you're hungry and you're not anywhere near a dining common, feel free to do that. Some of them accept Aggie Cash, some of them don't. And the stores downtown sell a variety of things that might be your favorite study spot or new favorite grocery store. The Arboretum is also really nice in the springtime where you can also just chill or study. And there's boba everywhere, literally everywhere. Now I'm tempted to give my own rankings and tier lists, but I'm not gonna do that. But I will tell you my favorite, and it's actually Tebow down over in South Davis. Their popcorn chicken and their spicy ranch combo is deadly. So tip number 11 would be to visit your major advisor at least once a year. I've had friends who schedule an appointment every quarter, and this is important because you want to graduate on time. There are requirements for your major and your college, which orientation I think will cover that really briefly. If you're able to graduate early because of all the AP units that you got translated over, that's great. If you have a free quarter and you have no requirements to fill, I'd highly recommend studying abroad. I personally went abroad to England at the University of Warwick, and I loved every second. I would love to go back. So if you have the chance to do so, I would highly recommend it. So tip number 12 is getting used to the Davis weather. If you're not familiar with the Davis NorCal heat, I would get ready for it. Winter can get as cold as 40 degrees, and then summer can get as hot as 110 degrees. So make sure you have the appropriate wardrobe. Bring raincoats, umbrellas, tank tops, shorts, because you're gonna need all of them. So my last tip is avoid 8 a.m.s. Honestly, just run. No, but really avoid them unless you really can't or that you really want to do so. It's really bad around winter when it's about 40 degrees, it's raining, it's windy, and you're either walking or biking to campus, and it's just terrible. So honestly, just avoid it if you can. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up this video on everything you need to know about UC Davis. If this was helpful, please leave a like, comment what you thought, and subscribe if you're new. And until next time, peace.